It all started one sunny Monday morning in the peaceful town of Olwari. People were going about their daily business. Children were rushing to school with mismatched socks and untied shoelaces. Mama Kichi was frying akara by the roadside while shouting at her lazy apprentice, and Kiki drivers were horning like their horns could solve all their problems. Then, like a scene from a Nollywood film, a girl appeared. She didn't arrive in a car. She didn't come down from a bike. 1 second, the junction was empty. The next, she was there. She stood right in the middle of the road, like someone who owned it. Light-skinned, curvy, and glowing like morning dew. Her short red dress clung to her figure, her hips swayed like music when she walked, and her face looked like it had never known sadness. She wore red high heels that clicked against the pavement, and tucked under her arm was a large red book, worn at the edges, but thick like it held 1,000 stories. The town froze. People stared. Conversations paused. Even the akara in Mama Kichi's pen stopped sizzling, or maybe people just forgot to listen. "Good morning, Mama Kichi," the girl said with a wide, friendly smile. Mama Kichi blinked, confused. "Good morning, my Pekin," she replied, but her voice shook. As the girl walked away, Mama Kichi leaned toward her apprentice. "You know her," she whispered. "No, Mama. Never seen her. But she knows me." Next, the girl greeted Baba Sani, the old fruit seller who had sat in the same spot for 30 years. "Your pawpaws look sweeter this week," she said with a wink. Baba Sani chuckled. "Ah. Thank you, my dear." Then, she turned to Madame Ngozi, the bitter woman known for hissing at children. "Your daughter finally passed her exam." "I knew she would," the girl said, gently tapping Madame Ngozi's shoulder. Madame Ngozi gasped. "How did you know my daughter was?" But Amma was already walking away. Her name? Amma. By evening, her name had traveled through every salon, every barbershop, every kiki, every buka in Olwari. Some said she was the daughter of a foreign ambassador. Others claimed she was the niece of the mayor, come to spy on the people. One bold boy said she floated above the ground when she walked, but nobody believed him. "She's just friendly," some said. "No," others replied. "She's not normal." That night, while most people were trying to sleep, Amma sat by the riverbank alone, under the big almond tree near the bridge. Her red book was open. The wind turned the pages, but her eyes remained still. Then, someone appeared behind her. A man in a black hoodie, creeping closer with each step. He thought she didn't notice. He thought he was silent. But just as he reached out a trembling hand, Amma turned. Her face was calm, but her eyes glowed faintly red, like dying embers. "Tell me," she said in a voice that sounded older than her face, "how long have you been hiding from your sins?" The man froze. His hand dropped to his side. I don't know what you mean," he stammered. Amma stood, closed her book slowly, and walked toward him. "Your name is Segan. You ran away from Ibadan after your brother went missing. You know what happened to him, don't you?" Segan took a step back. No, you can't." "I can," she said. "And I will. But not tonight." She smiled again, sweet and soft like she had earlier that morning. But this time, it chilled the bones. "Go home, Segan. Lock your doors. Tomorrow, we talk again." Then she turned and walked into the shadows, disappearing just as mysteriously as she came. The next morning, Segan left town without a word. Nobody saw him again. But Amma. She showed up the next day in a blue dress. Still smiling. Still carrying that red book. And from that day on, everyone in Olwari knew one thing. This girl knows too much. It had only been 2 days since Amma appeared in Olwari, and already, people were whispering her name like a prayer, or a curse. "She just appears and disappears," the mechanic said at the workshop. "She told me my sister's wedding will not hold, and it didn't," one woman murmured at the hair salon. "She called my dead grandmother by name," a man whispered at the beer parlor. But while many talked about her beauty and her strange wisdom, what they feared, yet wondered about the most, was the red book. Always under her arm. Never opened in public. Thick, bound in fading red leather, and fastened with a strap that looked ancient. Some said it was a diary. Others swore it was a book of spells. There was even a rumor that if you stared at the red book too long, you'd dream of your own secrets being shouted in the market square. Nobody had ever seen inside the book. Until that Thursday. It was a bright afternoon, and the sun sat lazily in the sky, casting soft shadows across Olwari Central Park. Children were chasing kites and rolling tires with sticks. Amma sat alone on a bench beneath the mango tree near the playground, flipping through her book like she was reading a newspaper. Her legs were crossed, her red shoes were polished, and a bottle of malt sat untouched beside her. 10-year-old Fola, the curious son of a pepper seller, was chasing his friends when his slipper flew off and landed near Amma's feet. He rushed forward to grab it, and as he bent down, the wind blew, and Amma's book slipped off her lap and hit the ground. Fola's eyes widened. It fell open. Just for a second. Only a second. But in that second, the boy saw things he didn't understand. There were names, written in neat handwriting. Names of people in Olwari. Some were underlined. Some had dates beside them. Others had one-word notes like guilty, denial, or waiting. Before Amma could react, the boy's hand touched the page, and suddenly, he froze. His body trembled slightly. His eyes went distant. Fola, someone called. His mother, approaching with a wrapper tied across her chest. Amma reached out gently, closed the book, and touched the boy's forehead. The trembling stopped. Fola blinked, confused. He looked at Amma, who smiled at him like a sister. Don't play so rough, Fola. And tell your father to stop going to that woman's house in Ogudu. Fola gasped. How do you know about that? But Amma only patted his head and walked away, her red book once again tucked tightly under her arm. That evening, Fola's mother told her neighbor what had happened. By nightfall, everyone in the area knew the story. Some laughed. Others felt chills. A few brave men gathered outside the bar and made plans. We go collect that book, they whispered. If she's using it to control people, we go burn 'em. Let her try any nonsense. But none of them showed up the next day. Not one. Why? Because each man woke up that morning to find a red feather on their pillow. Just one. No note. No sound. Just the feather. And from that day forward, nobody ever tried to touch Amma's red book again. Instead, they began to speak of it in hushed voices, like a forbidden shrine. Some even crossed themselves when she passed. Because now, they believed. That book did not just contain secrets. It fed on them. Mama Kichi had lived in Olwari for over 40 years. Everybody knew her as the no-nonsense akara seller by the main road junction. She was wide at the hips, loud in her speech, and sharp with her mouth. If you ever dared to owe her 50 Nigerian nairas for akara, she would call a town meeting. But since Amma arrived, Mama Kichi had become strangely quiet. She still fried her akara every morning, still tied her wrapper high above her belly, and still used too much Maggi in her stew. But now, when Amma passed by, Mama Kichi would pause, wipe her hands on her apron, and greet her, with respect. It was a quiet Saturday morning when the town noticed the change. Amma walked by in a green dress, her red book tucked under her arm as usual. Mama Kichi, who was usually the first to shout greetings, simply looked up and said softly, "Good morning, my dear." "My mother's akara still smells like love," Amma said gently, smiling. Mama Kichi smiled back, but her eyes were worried. After Amma left, her apprentice, young Lami, asked the question everyone was too scared to ask. "Mama, how does she know you like that? She even called you my mother." Mama Kichi looked around. The street was empty, save for a few passers-by. She leaned closer to Lami, her voice barely a whisper. "You see that girl," she said. "She knows things I buried 30 years ago." Lami's eyes widened. "What things?" Mama Kichi sat back, her eyes far away, as if looking into a memory that had waited too long to be acknowledged. Her second day in town, she came to buy akara. I told her the price. She said, "You used to charge 5 kobo back when you lived in Akire." Lami blinked. "How did she?" "I haven't told anyone about Akire in decades," Mama Kichi said, wiping her hands nervously. That town. I ran from there. Lami was quiet now. The air around them felt heavier. I was married once, Mama Kichi continued. Long before I became Mama Kichi. I had a husband. A soldier. Tall, dark, stubborn. And I had a baby. A boy. Lami's mouth fell open. You have a son. I did. Her eyes grew misty. But I left both of them. Things were hard. My husband, he was cruel. One day, I packed my things and ran. I told myself I'd go back when I had something to offer. But time passed. Shame grew. I changed my name. I became the woman Olwari knows. Lami touched her arm gently. But Amma, how would she know? That's the thing, Mama Kichi said, glancing down the road where Amma had disappeared. She told me, my son is still alive. And he's coming. Silence. Lami whispered, coming here. Mama Kichi nodded slowly. Yes. She said he'll walk past my Accra stand on his way to the council office in 3 days. She even told me what color shirt he'll wear, blue and white checkered. Lami stood up, goosebumps rising on her arms. Mama, that's too much. This Amma, she's not just a girl. No, Mama Kichi agreed, staring into her hot oil, her voice trembling, she's not. 3 days passed. On the 4th morning, Mama Kichi did not open her Accra stand. People gathered. Some thought she was sick. Others guessed she had gone to the village. But Lami knew the truth. She found Mama Kichi sitting in her backyard, fully dressed, staring at the main road. Her hands trembled on her lap. And then, at exactly 10:05 a.m., a man passed by in a blue and white checkered shirt, heading toward the council office. He did not look at Mama Kichi. He didn't even glance in her direction. But she looked at him. And she knew. That was her son. The one she left behind. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't move. Behind her, a soft voice whispered, some secrets don't stay buried, Mama. She turned. Amma stood there, smiling softly, the red book under her arm.
Olwari was a city with many secrets. But everyone agreed that if there was any house with no skeletons in the closet, it had to be Pastor Emmanuel's house. He was the founder of Divine Power Fire Evangelical Ministry International Headquarters Worldwide, yes, that was the full name. And he was respected. People called him Daddy Gio with pride. He wore white all the time. His sermons were fiery, his prayers loud, and his fasting record legendary. Even witches avoided his street, or so they said. But what no one ever talked about, at least not in public, was his only daughter, Deborah. Deborah was beautiful. And unlike most pastors' children, she dressed modestly, cooked well, and led the choir with a voice that could melt stone. To the public she was holy, humble, and harmless. Until Amma came to town. It began one Wednesday evening at midweek service. Deborah was leading worship. Her voice was strong, lifting the congregation into a frenzy of praise. Pastor Emmanuel stood at the altar, shouting, Amen. Yes, Lord, while elders danced around with handkerchiefs. Suddenly, the back door opened. Someone entered slowly. It was Amma. She wore a long, flowing purple dress and walked straight to the front pew. Her red book under her arm, her heels echoing softly on the tiled floor. Nobody had invited her. But she moved like she was born in the church. Deborah paused mid-song. Her eyes locked with Amma's. And something changed. She forgot the next line. Her voice shook. The musicians stumbled, trying to catch the rhythm. Pastor Emmanuel turned sharply, confused. Then Amma smiled. Just slightly. That night, the service ended awkwardly. The pastor prayed in tongues longer than usual. The choir dismissed early. And Deborah did not follow her parents home. She left through the back gate. Alone. Lami, who had followed Amma out of curiosity, saw them together at the corner of Obasanjo Street, Amma and Deborah, sitting under a yellow streetlight, talking quietly. She couldn't hear what they said, but she saw Amma open the red book and turn it toward Deborah. Deborah gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. She began to cry. Not normal crying, deep, shaking, body-breaking sobs. Like her soul was spilling out. The next day, news spread through the church. Deborah had fainted at dawn, and was now refusing to speak to anyone, not even her parents. People whispered. Some said it was spiritual attack. Others blamed the devil. But on Saturday night, Deborah walked to the town square alone, barefoot, wearing only a wrapper. She stood in the center, as people gathered around in shock. She raised her hands and shouted. I'm tired of pretending. I'm not the perfect daughter you all think I am. I've lied. I've stolen. I've even done things with people you pray against on Sundays. The crowd gasped. Elder Makanju dropped his roasted corn. Deborah turned in slow circles, pointing at the people watching. Sister Shade, you gave me money to cover up your pregnancy in 2020. Bro, Tund, you sent me naked pictures last year while preaching, abstain from lust. And you, Deaconess Margaret, stop judging me, you've been sleeping with the choir master since January. Silence. Stone cold silence. Then chaos. People shouted, screamed, some tried to run. Pastor Emmanuel arrived, panting, sweat pouring down his white agbada. Deborah. What is this madness? But she turned to him calmly. It's not madness, Daddy. Amma showed me what's inside that book. I saw myself. And I saw the lies we've all been telling. That night, Deborah was taken to the clinic. But she didn't need any medicine. She sat there smiling. Calm. Peaceful. Like someone who had finally dropped a heavy load. As for Amma, she was last seen walking past the church gate that night, her red book tucked as always under her arm. One of the ushers claimed he saw something strange. He said the red book glowed slightly when Deborah confessed. Just for a second. Then it dimmed again, like it had fed on truth, and was now full.
Counselor Abong was the kind of man who could smile and lie at the same time. He drove a black Toyota Highlander with a customized number plate, Olwari First Son. He built boreholes in election seasons, promised free Wi-Fi, which never worked, and handed out bags of rice with his face printed on the nylon. In Olwari, everyone knew he was a thief, but no one could prove it. Until Amma came to town. The local government election was just 1 month away. Abong had posters everywhere, on buses, on palm trees, even on the gate of the Anglican church. His face was always smiling, his hand always pointing to a brighter future. He organized a massive campaign rally at the city square. Free food, loud music, bouncers wearing black shades, even a dancing masquerade to entertain the crowd. But just as Abong climbed the stage to speak, a woman in red walked in from the back of the crowd. It was Amma. As usual, she had her red book under her arm. Her heels clicked against the pavement. She did not wave. She did not smile. She just walked and stood right in front of the stage. Abong's voice wavered. He coughed, adjusted the mic, and cleared his throat. Good people of Olwari, I greet you all. Together we have come far, and together we shall go. Shall we go together, Amma interrupted, or shall we go to prison? Silence fell. Everyone turned. The DJ stopped the music. The microphone squealed from the feedback. Abong's eyes widened. Madam, what is the meaning of this? Amma pulled out a folded paper from her red book. She raised it high. This, she said calmly, is a bank statement showing 72 million naira moved from the education fund account to an offshore account in Dubai. Account number ending in 7064. The name on the account? Abong Johnson. People gasped. Abong laughed awkwardly. This is a setup. Fake news. This is politics, dirty politics. Amma didn't flinch. She opened another page. Here's a video of you telling the project manager to inflate the cost of the borehole project by 400%. You said, and I quote, "Make it look like the pipe reached the sky, I don't care." The projector screen behind the stage flickered. Then it played. A grainy but clear video appeared. Abang was there, in his office, laughing and drinking Hennessy. "Make it look like the pipe reached the sky," the video repeated, in his voice. Pandemonium broke out. People shouted. Someone threw a plastic chair. The police escort that came with Abang rushed him into his SUV and drove away like they were running from spiritual attack. By the next morning, the video had gone viral. Olwari WhatsApp groups buzzed. Twitter, or whatever people use now, exploded. Hashtag #OlwariLeaks was trending. Abang's face was now a meme. But Amma. She walked past the town square that morning, her red dress fluttering in the breeze, as if she didn't just destroy a political dynasty in 10 minutes. Some people feared her. Others admired her. But everyone now agreed on one thing. Amma's book doesn't lie. The council held an emergency meeting that week. Abang was suspended. An investigation was launched. And 2 junior staff members who tried to destroy files at midnight were caught red-handed. Amma had already warned the clerk 3 hours before they arrived. Lami told Mama Kichi, "I think Amma knows the future." But Mama Kichi shook her head. "No, child. She knows the past so well, she can predict the future." That Sunday, the town gathered at the square again. But this time, not for a rally, for an open meeting with the elders and remaining candidates. One by one, they approached Amma's chair, where she sat quietly at the edge, flipping through her red book. She didn't speak. But each time a candidate stood before her, she'd either nod, or slowly close her book. Nobody dared question it. Olwari had changed. The book was watching. The hair salon at the corner of Ogundil Street had no name. But everyone in Olwari knew it as Auntie Vero's place. You didn't go there just to fix your hair. You went to hear gossip, drop secrets, and sometimes, to make deals that didn't smell clean. If the city of Olwari had a whispering heart, it beat inside that small pink-painted salon. Auntie Vero was not your average stylist. She was loud, full-bodied, and had eyes that missed nothing. She talked while braiding, hissed while washing, and knew everybody's story before they even sat in her chair. Her slogan: "Hair no day lie. When I touch your scalp, I feel your spirit." But the day Amma entered her salon, something changed. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. The wind was blowing sideways. Some girls were under the dryer, others waiting for their turn. The salon smelled of relaxer and fried fish from the roadside. Then Amma walked in. She wore a tight black jumpsuit, red heels, and, of course, carried her big red book. "Good afternoon," she said, smiling. The salon went quiet. Auntie Vero blinked twice. "We no day do walk in this weeko. It's by appointment only." Amma sat calmly on the plastic chair near the mirror. "I'm not here for hair. I'm here for truth." Everyone froze. One of the apprentices, Taupe, tried to sneak out but slipped on conditioner and hit the floor. A customer quickly covered her chest with her scarf. Auntie Vero scoffed. "Look, madam, this no be church. Carry your drama go elsewhere." Amma opened her book slowly. She didn't say anything at first. Then she read, softly. December 12, 2022, Vero mixed cassava starch in Madame Gladys's hair dye to save cost. Result, hair loss and permanent scalp damage. March 9, 2023, Vero collected 50,000 Nigerian nairas from Mr. Chucks to set up secret camera in the women's washing station. The entire salon gasped. Auntie Vero leapt from her stool. "Lie. Who are you? Who sent you?" But Amma didn't stop. April 4th, you whispered into Amara's ear that her best friend slept with her husband. They fought. Amara left her marriage. Truth, it was never her friend. It was you. Silence. Even the wall clock seemed to stop ticking. Amara, who was seated quietly under a dryer, stood up, stunned. "You," she whispered. Auntie Vero's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her knees buckled. She sat down, trembling. Who are you?" she asked. Amma finally looked up. "I'm just the mirror you've avoided. And this," she lifted the red book slightly, "is your true reflection." She stood, closed the book gently, and walked out. The bell on the door jingled like soft thunder. By the next morning, Auntie Vero's salon was empty. Her apprentices refused to come. 2 former clients reported her to the Health and Sanitation Board. Amara, now furious, returned with police. They found a hidden memory card in a fake air freshener can. The evidence was clear. Auntie Vero had been spying, recording, destroying people's lives for years, all while styling their hair. But the biggest surprise? Someone claimed they saw her the night before at the shrine behind the market, begging an old priest for cleansing. The priest said, "Your curse is not from gods. It is from the book of truth, and once your name enters, only confession can erase it." Back in town, Amma bought a stick of suya and sat calmly under a mango tree, reading her book again. People now crossed the road to avoid her. Even the street boys that used to catcall women now said, "Good afternoon, Ma," with 2 hands behind their back. Because everyone in Olwari had secrets. But only Amma carried a book that knew them all. In Olwari Community High School, there was one man every parent feared, and every student knew by name. Mr. Ajayi. A tall, lanky man in his late 40s with thick glasses and a wooden cane that had seen more backsides than chalkboards. He wore his trousers high, his shirts tight, and his temper short. He was the senior mathematics teacher, strict, respected, but more importantly, feared. He didn't tolerate nonsense. But as Amma would soon reveal, he was full of it. It was the last week of the term. WAEC preparations were in full swing. Students were restless. Teachers were overworked. And the principal, a tired man with a squeaky voice, had all but lost control. Then one morning, Amma arrived. She walked into the school compound, not as a student, not as a parent, but as a silent observer. Her red dress stood out like fire on a blackboard. She didn't speak to anyone. Just watched. Notebook in hand. Writing. Watching. Smiling. By noon, her presence had unsettled the entire staff room. "Who invited her here?" one teacher whispered. "Is she an inspector?" another asked. Mr. Ajayi marched up to her. "Madam, this is a school environment. No loitering allowed." Amma looked up at him. "You collect 15,000 Nigerian nairas per subject for special help during exams. Shouldn't you be teaching instead?" Mr. Ajayi blinked. "Excuse me." Amma opened her red book. Page 113. Kelechi's father paid 45,000 Nigerian nairas last week. In cash. In a brown envelope. You told him, just relax. Your boy will pass maths even if he writes his name alone. Students nearby covered their mouths in shock. Shinonso's mother paid too. But you gave her a discount because she gave you pounded yam from her restaurant. Remember. Lie. Mr. Ajayi barked. "Madam, leave this school before I call the police." But Amma continued. "Last year, you failed Miriam because her parents refused to pay. Even though she got 78 in your internal exam. You replaced her name with a forged paper and gave her 12 out of 100. Now the students started to murmur. Miriam cried oh. She nearly dropped out. She got a scholarship after retaking the paper in another school. The vice principal came rushing out, face pale. What's going on? Amma stood and handed him a folded paper. It was a photocopy of all the names, payments, and scores. Bank transfer receipts. Handwritten promises. Even a voice recording of Mr. Ajayi demanding 20,000 Nigerian nairas from a poor woman trying to get her son into science class. By the time the principal came out, the compound was boiling. Parents were arriving. PTA members were shouting. And Mr. Ajayi was nowhere to be found. He had slipped out through the back fence, leaving his wooden cane behind. By evening, Olwari WhatsApp groups were on fire. The red book had struck again. This time, inside the classroom. One parent tweeted. "We are fighting for free education while some teachers are fighting to sell it. Thank you, mysterious red book woman." That weekend, the Education Board launched a full audit of Olwari's schools. 3 other teachers were named in the book. One was caught trying to burn old WAEC scripts in his backyard. Mr. Ajayi, however, had vanished. Some said he ran to Lagos. Others claimed they saw him inside a shrine, kneeling and weeping. But Amma? She simply sat under the tree beside the community school, reading her book, chewing sugarcane, and watching the children laugh during break time. A journalist who visited Olwari asked her one question. Why are you exposing these people? Why are you doing this? She looked up and smiled. Because truth deserves sunlight. And in this city, too many secrets live in the dark. In the heart of Olwari city stood a crumbling compound at the edge of a Johnny road. There, beneath the shadow of a leaning coconut tree, lived a man people whispered about, but never too loudly. Chief Makanjula. Tall. Wrinkled. His skin sagged like laundry left too long in the sun. He hardly ever came out of his gate, except once a month, for church and for money collection. Why did people fear him? Because 10 years ago, Chief Makanjula died. They buried him. The funeral was big. The food was plenty. His wife wailed. The church choir sang till their throats went dry. But 3 years later, he came back. Alive. And that was when the real stories began. Some said he faked his death to escape debts. Others said he had joined a cult that allowed him to rise after 7 nights. A few believed his wife had used charm to resurrect him, and that he hadn't returned alone. But no one knew the truth. Until Amma walked through his compound gate. It was a Sunday afternoon. The air was still. Amma wore a long white gown and held her red book like a priestess with a holy scroll. Her heels clicked softly on the tiled corridor. The gateman, Baba Kunal, tried to stop her. Madam, this house no day welcome stranger. She looked him in the eye. You used to work in the mortuary. You signed his fake death certificate. Page 221. The old man froze. His mouth opened slightly. How? She didn't wait. She walked straight into the sitting room, without knocking. Chief Makanjula was sitting in a high-back chair, sipping palm wine and watching a black and white movie on his ancient TV. When he saw her, he didn't blink. Just smiled. I was wondering when you'd come. You've been expecting me? Amma asked, taking a seat without invitation. Of course. A man like me always has to watch his shadow. But you don't come like others. You come with thunder behind your eyes. Amma opened her red book. March 5, 2014, you arranged your own funeral. Your coffin was filled with banana trunks. Your corpse was said to be too sacred to be shown. But the mortuary workers were paid 150,000 Nigerian nairas to issue a death certificate. Reason, you were under investigation for embezzling 250 million Nigerian nairas from the State Market Renovation Fund. Chief sighed and poured himself another drink. You make it sound so wicked. I only took what was mine. Those people wanted me dead anyway. You faked your death and stayed hidden in Ghana for 2 years. Returned under a new name, Mr. Kola Martins. Started a real estate company using stolen money. Now your houses line the streets of Alawu. Chief chuckled. You know everything, don't you? No, Amma replied. I only know what people try to bury. Your wife remarried. To your cousin. She thought you were truly dead. You returned and blackmailed both of them. That's why your cousin died in a fire accident last year. Chief's smile faded. He reached under his table slowly. But Amma beat him to it. She pulled out her phone and played an audio clip. If you tell anyone, I'll make your body disappear for real this time, like I did to Akeem. It was Chief's voice. Crystal clear. Where did you get this? He growled, rising. But Amma stood calmly, placing her red book on the glass table. Her voice was calm, slow, and precise. I came to give you one chance. One real death. Confess, or disappear again. This time, for good. Sirens echoed in the distance. Police. Already on their way. Chief Makanjula collapsed into his chair. Defeated. As Amma turned to leave, he muttered, "What are you? Woman? Ghost? Witch?" She paused, turned back, and whispered, "I'm memory. I'm truth. And I never forget." By nightfall, the news had spread. The man who died twice has been arrested. Olwari citizens poured into the streets. Some were confused. Some were amazed. Others feared what Amma's book would reveal next. From her small apartment on Odetala Street, Amma opened her red book again. The next page had a new name. A fresh secret. And a date circled in red ink. In the heart of Olwari's newest luxury estate, Palm Crown Heights, stood a 30-story building known as the Monarch. On the very top floor was a glass-walled penthouse that overlooked the entire city. That penthouse belonged to Madame Velma, a widow, a philanthropist, and to the outside world, the definition of elegance and sorrow. Her husband, Chief Ndebisi, had died 2 years ago in what the media called a tragic boat accident in Zanzibar. Velma had returned to Nigeria in a black lace gown, dark glasses, and a tear that seemed permanent in the corner of her left eye. She donated to churches, gave scholarships to orphans, and hosted widows for lunch on the first Sunday of every month. Everyone adored her. But Amma didn't. She stood outside the Monarch one Tuesday morning, her red book clutched beneath her arm, wearing a calm smile that made the security guards nervous. She didn't need to say much. She simply showed the doorman page 298. His face went pale. "Madam is expecting me," Amma said, and walked in. The penthouse, 10:06 a.m. Madame Velma stood in front of her floor-to-ceiling window, sipping hibiscus tea in a silk robe. Her beauty was ageless, high cheekbones, arched eyebrows, and a slender waist that betrayed her 50 years. She didn't turn when Amma entered. "Would you like tea?" Velma asked. "No," Amma replied. "I came to talk about your husband. I buried him." "You buried his watch? And his old driver's body?" Velma stiffened. But she didn't turn. Amma opened her red book, letting the pages fall naturally to page 298. "On August 17, 2 years ago, you checked into Zanzibar's private port hotel under the name Mrs. Doreen Agu. You weren't alone. You were with engineer Silas Adebayo, your husband's business partner. The next morning, your husband boarded a private boat. The same boat Silas had serviced the night before. The engine exploded mid-sea. Body charred beyond recognition." Amma walked further into the room. But autopsy results were altered. The body didn't belong to Chief Ndebisi. It was his driver. Burnt. Stuffed into his suit. The dental records were switched. Velma finally turned. Her face was unreadable. "You're making dangerous assumptions," she said softly. Amma continued. "Chief Ndebisi didn't die. He was poisoned slowly. By you. Over 3 months. You laced his water with trace amounts of arsenic. When his body weakened, you took him to Zanzibar, arranged the boat accident, and buried his name. The poison was never detected because the corpse wasn't his." Velma walked to her bar. Poured herself whiskey. "You know what your problem is?" she asked. "You believe that truth sets people free. But truth ruins things. Lives. Legacies. Families. You don't care about any of that," Amma replied. "You killed your husband for his 1.8 billion Nigerian Nairas life insurance policy. You collected it through an offshore account registered under the name Sina Holdings Limited. You and Silas now own 9 properties across Lagos and Abuja." Velma's face twitched for the first time. "But here's what you didn't know, your maid, Anita, recorded your confession 2 nights after the funeral. She uploaded it to her Google Drive before she disappeared. You thought she ran away. But she gave me the password." Amma dropped a flash drive on the table. "You have until midnight to confess publicly. Or this goes to every media house in the country." Velma sipped her whiskey slowly. Calmly. Like a queen at the gallows. "You won't make it out of here alive," she whispered. But Amma smiled. "That's what the last 4 people said. You know where they are now." Silence. Amma turned and walked toward the elevator. As she left, Velma stared at the flash drive, her fingers trembling just slightly. She picked up her phone. Dialed a number. Silas, we have a problem. The Red Book girl, she knows everything. By sunset, the city of Olwari was buzzing. The evening news reported that Madame Velma had called a sudden press conference. She stood before the cameras, weeping. Confessing. Claiming it was all a moment of weakness. Saying she was ready to face the law. Social media exploded. Madame Widow na murderer. Wedding day Olwari. Red Book again. Some feared Amma. Others admired her. But all were glued to their screens. Meanwhile, Amma sat alone at a rooftop restaurant, sipping cold sobo, her red book lying open beside her. The next page was already filled. It was a warm Friday evening in Olwari, and the streets were packed with music, street hawkers, and motorbikes buzzing like angry bees. Near the central roundabout, the largest wedding hall in the city, Diamond Crescent Pavilion, was decorated with golden lights and a banner that read, "Happy Union of Kunal and Amarachi, Love Forever." People from all over Olwari had come to witness the grand wedding of Kunal Afolayan, a wealthy tech entrepreneur, and Amarachi, a woman who appeared out of nowhere just 8 months ago. Nobody knew her family. Nobody knew her background. But everyone agreed on one thing: Amarachi was stunning. Soft-spoken. Elegant. Graceful like moonlight on still water. Her skin was smooth, her nails always painted white, and she wore silk like she was born with it. But Amma sat quietly at the back row of the wedding hall, legs crossed, red book in hand. She wasn't smiling. The wedding ceremony, 7:15 p.m. The vows had just ended. Kunal looked like the happiest man alive. Amarachi smiled sweetly as he slid the ring on her finger. "Do you, Kunal, take Amarachi as your lawful wife?" "I object," Amma's voice cut through the air like a knife. Gasps filled the hall. The priest paused, confused. "Madam, are you serious?" Amma stood. "Yes. And if you don't stop this wedding, I'll show a video that will make every guest here vomit their jollof rice." People turned. Phones came out. Amarachi's eyes widened. Kunal looked from Amma to his bride. "What's going on here?" Amma flipped open her red book to page 344. March 13th, Amarachi arrived in Olwari under the name Adora Emmanuel. Before that, she was known as Grace Nkwocha in Port Harcourt, where she was married to Chief Igwe Patrick, who died under mysterious circumstances. The autopsy revealed internal bleeding, but the family buried him quickly, and Amarachi disappeared with a portion of his estate. Less than a month later, she changed her name again in Lagos. Amarachi stepped forward, her voice shaky. "This is madness. I don't know this woman." Amma smiled. "Oh, you know me. I visited the grave of Chief Patrick. His family still weeps. I spoke with the pharmacist who sold you misomyphine, an illegal herbal concoction that induces internal bleeding if consumed in heavy doses. It was found in Patrick's wine glass." The crowd gasped. Amma held up her phone and played a recorded audio. "Don't worry, baby. This time I'll do it clean. No mess like Patrick. He bled for hours. Kunal will be easier. Just one drop. Then, the will." It was Amarachi's voice. Clear. Undeniable. Kunal stumbled backward, staring at his bride. "Amara, is this true?" Amarachi dropped her bouquet. "It's all lies. She's trying to ruin me." But Amma didn't stop. "Do you want the video of her mixing the poison into the wine last night at Zuzu restaurant? The manager gave me the footage. I also have the voice message she sent to her sister in Owerri, bragging about marrying the stupid tech goat." At this point, security was already moving toward Amarachi. She tried to run, but Amma was faster. She stepped in front of the aisle and said, coldly, "This bride never bled, because every man who loved her ended up dead." Later that night, the wedding was cancelled. Amarachi was arrested and taken into custody. The video footage was leaked online, and within hours, her story trended across Nigeria. Hashtag Black Widow Bride. Hashtag Olwari Red Book. Hashtag Not All That Glitters. Kunal refused to talk to anyone. His mother collapsed. His groomsmen drank themselves into a daze. But Amma, as usual, disappeared quietly into the shadows of the city. She returned to her small apartment on Arala Street, pulled out her red pen, and crossed a name off her list. Another secret revealed. Another life saved. She turned the page. And there it was, written in bold red ink. Olwari had many stories, but none more chilling than the one tied to Block B3 of Crown Estate Phase 2, an old 3-story building that had once been the pride of the city's housing scheme. Now, it stood with cracked walls, faded paint, and rusted balconies, looking like it held in more than just the weight of bricks. People said the building moaned at night. Some said it whispered. But everyone agreed, apartment 2B was cursed. And now, Amma had circled it in red ink. She stood in front of the building one rainy Tuesday morning, red book under her arm, dressed in a black raincoat and boots. Raindrops slid off her hood, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes were locked on the broken second-floor window, where, if you stared long enough, you could almost hear a soft cry. A cry that didn't belong to any child of this world. 3 weeks earlier, a young couple, Tamawa and Chichi, had moved into apartment 2B with high hopes. Tamawa was an engineer, Chichi, a final-year nursing student. They got the place cheap, too cheap. But love and budget made fools of good people. On their first night, Chichi woke up sweating. She heard what sounded like a girl weeping inside the wall. She shook Tamawa. "Babe, listen." He paused. There was nothing. Then, "Help me." It was faint, like it traveled through layers of cement and grief. Tamawa turned on the lights. The sound stopped. He laughed it off. "Just pipes, Jor. You two-day fear horror movies." But the voice returned every night. And with it, nightmares. Chichi started seeing things. A shadowy girl in the mirror. A hand on her stomach while she bathed. She begged Tamawa to leave, but he refused. "Where do you want us to go? We just finished paying rent." Then, Chichi stopped sleeping. And 2 days later, she went missing. Present day, Crown Estate. Amma knocked on apartment 2B's door. The current tenant, a teacher named Mr. Ibe, opened the door suspiciously. "I don't need anything, please." Amma flashed her red book. "I'm not selling anything. I'm solving something." Mr. Ibe's shoulders slumped. "She still cries at 2:14 a.m. sharp," he whispered, looking around as if the walls were listening. "Some nights, I hear her scratching. Other nights, it's like she's calling for her mother." "Who is she?" Amma asked calmly. Mr. Ibe shook his head. "No one knows. But they say she lived here. Before this building became Crown Estate, it was a missionary boarding school. Closed after a fire broke out in 1997. Amma's eyes sharpened. "Show me the oldest wall in this apartment." The back wall of the bedroom. Peeling wallpaper. Faint black stains. Amma bent close, running her fingers along the edge. She knocked 3 times, talk talk talk. Hollow. Then she turned to Mr. Ibe. "Do you have a torch?" They lit up the area. Behind the old wallpaper, Amma found scratches, numbers. February 12, 1997. 3:29 a.m. He locked me in. Below it, another set of words, barely readable. "I want to go home. I want to go home. I want." But it faded into nothing. Amma's voice was steady. "There's a body in that wall." Mr. Ibe staggered back. "Ha! God forbid." But Amma opened her red book and showed him page 412. In 1997, a fire broke out at St. Lydia's Girls' Boarding School. The building was declared condemned. All girls were rescued, except one. Nkiru Over, age 13. Her parents were told she had run into the woods and died. No body was ever recovered. No investigation followed. The priest in charge of the school, Father Clement, resigned mysteriously the next month and moved to a remote village in Bayelsa. But I found his diary. He wrote on the night of the fire. She wouldn't keep quiet. I locked her in the punishment room. Then I smelled smoke. He never returned for her. 2 days later, Olwari digs up the wall. It was breaking news across town. With Amma's evidence, the city police and forensics reopened the case. The wall of apartment 2B was carefully cut open in front of shocked journalists. And there she was, bones curled in fetal position, a burned uniform, and beside her, a small handmade necklace with the letter N still dangling from its chain. The city wept. People gathered at the site with candles. Nkiru's parents, now old and fragile, came in tears. The police arrested Father Clement, who had been living under the name Elder James Igbudu in Bayelsa. He confessed everything. Later that night, Amma sat alone at her desk. The rain still drizzled softly outside. She opened her red book, turning past pages filled with secrets, lies, and unfinished truths. Then she wrote in bold red ink. White heavy checkmark Chapter 11, solved. Nkiru is finally free. She turned the page, her hand pausing on the next title. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Olwari, the kind that carried the smell of jollof rice, diesel fumes, and sun-dried laundry. Church bells echoed from street to street as families returned home dressed in bright ankara and lace. Children dragged their feet behind their parents, sleepy from long sermons and hot rice. But not everyone went home. Some stayed behind, whispering behind cupped hands, their eyes darting toward Holy Fire Revival Ministries International, the tallest and most modern church in the city. Not because of the church itself, but because of what Amma had done. Earlier that morning, during the second service, Amma had stood up from the third row in a red dress, again, holding her red book. Pastor Yua, mid-sermon, had paused, clearly startled. She had walked down the aisle slowly, never breaking eye contact with him. Then she said, loudly and clearly, "You told the world your daughter died in an accident in 2021. But she didn't, did she?" The microphone fell from the choir leader's hand. Gasps filled the sanctuary. "She didn't die in a car crash," Amma said. "She died in your basement." The church went silent like a tomb. The secret of the basement. The church basement was a locked space under the altar, said to be used for storage and fasting retreats. No one had been inside in over 3 years. Rumors had floated for months, strange smells, muffled noises at night, and one deacon who fainted after mistakenly entering the basement in 2022. But every time someone asked about Pastor Yua's daughter, Joy, he simply said, "She died. May her soul rest. Don't question God." The city had accepted it. Until now. Joy UWA, who she really was. Amma's red book held details no one else knew. Joy wasn't just the pastor's only daughter, she was also the lead soprano, Sunday school teacher, and secretly, a girl with visions. According to the notes Amma had gathered from anonymous letters, Joy started hearing things, seeing shadows, predicting events during prayers. She once told a deaconess, "Someone will die if they don't confess," 2 days before the woman suffered a stroke. Instead of help, her father locked her away, saying she was possessed. She had tried to escape. She had begged for help. And then, she disappeared. The confrontation. After the service, Pastor Yua tried to rush out with security. But Amma stood at the church gates with reporters and police already waiting. Her red book was now public knowledge, feared by many. She had never been wrong before. "Open the basement," she said calmly. "You're mad." "This is a church," Pastor Yua snapped. "Then prove me wrong. Let us see inside." The police intervened. After some resistance and shouting from angry ushers, they broke the basement padlock. Everyone held their breath. What they found under the church. The basement was dark and cold. A small cot sat in the corner. Mold lined the ceiling. A worn Bible lay on the floor, pages torn out. And taped to the back wall was a series of journal entries, written in red ink on old offering envelopes. Amma read them aloud as the camera crew zoomed in. "Day 5, he says I can't come out until the voices stop. Day 11, I think I'm going mad. I hear a child laughing even when it's silent. Day 30, I miss Mum. Why did she leave me here? Day 56, I had a dream of Amma. She wore red and opened the door." Gasps filled the air. She had dreamed of Amma before she died. The final note read, "Tell them I was not crazy. Tell them the gift was not a curse." In the corner, they found a small skull and hair beads, later confirmed to be Joy's remains, long decomposed, hidden behind fake plywood. Pastor UWA arrested. The church that once called him Daddy now screamed for justice. The headlines read, "Pastor murders daughter, hides body in church basement for 3 years." People cried, others were angry, but Amma said nothing. She just opened her red book and checked the page. White heavy checkmark chapter 12, Truth Uncovered, the prophet's daughter is free. But something odd happened that night. Back at her apartment, Amma was writing the next chapter when her light flickered. Not once. Not twice. But 3 times. She looked up. The room suddenly turned cold. Then came a whisper, soft and sweet, just like the voice of a teenage girl. "Thank you, but now you must help the others." Amma closed the book quickly. She looked down at the next chapter title, which had written itself in red ink. It was 3 days after the chaos at Holy Fire Revival Ministries. The town of Olwari had not yet recovered from the shock of Amma's revelation. Everyone was still talking about Joy's body in the basement. Rumors traveled faster than buses, and now, Amma's name was on every tongue. But Amma had already moved on. She always moved on. Because Olwari's secrets were like unripe mangoes, hiding bitter truths beneath smooth skin. That Tuesday morning, she arrived quietly at Olwari General Hospital, not in her usual red dress but in a nurse's uniform. White scrubs. Clean shoes. A surgical mask tucked beneath her chin. But of course, no one noticed her. She blended in. Because this time, the secret wasn't about a politician, a teacher, or a church elder. It was about someone even more hidden. A nurse. A nurse who was never hired. A nurse who had no file. A nurse with no reflection. The disappearance ward. Amma had heard about the vanishing patients in Ward B. People admitted with minor injuries would vanish by nightfall. When their families came, the nurses would claim they had been transferred to another facility. But no one ever found them again. Not in any hospital. Not in any record. The files were either misplaced or burned in, accidental system failures. It started with an old woman with arthritis. Then a pregnant woman with preeclampsia. Then a street boy with asthma. Every time someone disappeared, one nurse was always on duty. Her name was Nurse Ikayat. Who is Nurse Ikayat? She was beautiful in a cold way. Tall, dark-skinned, and very quiet. She wore the whitest uniform, pressed sharp like a blade. Her voice was soft, barely louder than a whisper. But she never blinked. And most strangely, no one could remember when she was hired. Even the chief matron, Mama Ojinika, once said, "N. Ikayat. She's been here a long time, I think." But she didn't sound sure. Every staff member remembered seeing her around, but no one could recall when she started. No one had ever seen her take lunch, use the bathroom, or even touch a patient. Yet, she was always there. Amma's investigation. Amma didn't speak much that first day. She simply walked into the hospital with confidence, holding her large red book, and told the admin she was a volunteer nurse from the city. The receptionist smiled and said, "We've been short-staffed. Go ahead." They didn't even ask for ID. By the second day, Amma began to shadow the night shift. She saw Ikayat walk the halls like a spirit, no footsteps, no shadows. And then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., Ikayat entered Ward B with a tray. Inside the ward was a young girl named Temi, admitted earlier that day for malaria. But the moment Ikayat stepped in, Temi's heart monitor began to spike wildly. Amma, watching from the hallway, ran toward the room. But by the time she opened the door, Temi was gone. And Ikayat? Nowhere in sight. The bed was perfectly made. No sign of struggle. No sign of movement. Just one strange thing. The mirror on the wall had cracked, right down the middle. The mirror trick. On the third night, Amma brought a small mirror and hid it under her uniform. She had read that evil spirits and shapeshifters could not tolerate reflections. She followed Ikayat through the corridor again, trailing her scent of disinfectant and dead roses. When Ikayat entered room 9, Amma slipped in silently and placed the mirror against the wall. Ikayat turned. And for the first time, Amma saw nothing in the glass. No reflection. Not even a shadow. Ikayat smiled. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. Then all the mirrors in the room shattered at once. The battle in the silent ward. The hospital lights flickered. The AC groaned. A deep coldness fell across the room. Ikayat moved toward Amma, floating more than walking. Her hands turned black at the fingertips. "I collect the forgotten," Ikayat said. "The ones nobody will miss. It's a kindness, really." She reached out for Amma's throat. But Amma was ready. She opened her red book. Inside, a page had already written itself. She does not reflect because she is not of this world. But she can be trapped by the blood of remembrance. Amma took out a needle and pricked her finger. She smeared her blood across the mirror shards on the floor. A scream echoed, not from Ikayat's mouth, but from every corner of the room. The walls bled. The floor cracked. And Ikayat dropped to her knees. Then, she vanished. Gone. No puff of smoke. No body. Just gone. And Temi? She was found unconscious inside the storage room. Weak, but alive. The aftermath. Amma handed the hospital admin a report the next morning. She called it a recommendation on spirit possession protocols in health institutions. They laughed, thinking it was a joke. But they stopped laughing when a patient they had declared dead in the morgue woke up screaming. "Don't let her come back." The admin fired 4 staff members that day and shut down Ward B permanently. But Amma. She simply smiled and walked out, red book under her arm, and heels clicking like thunder on tile. The next case. Back at her apartment, she sat by her window. Rain drizzled softly outside. She opened her book and turned the page. This time, the next chapter didn't write itself. Instead, a torn newspaper clipping fell out. Local bride disappears on wedding day, last seen smiling in front of mirror. Groom claims she melted into glass. Below it, scribbled in ink. And again, her light flickered. Once. Twice. Then a whisper came, not from outside, but from the mirror on her wall. "Find me, before I forget who I am." It began again with a whisper. But this time, it didn't come from the streets. Not from a neighbor, not from a corner gossip, not even from her red book. It came from the mirror in her own room. "Find me, before I forget who I am." The voice was faint, female, and trembling, like someone who'd been trapped in silence for years. Amma stared at the mirror. Her own reflection blinked back, unchanged. Her room was still. No wind, no flicker of light. But the voice returned, soft and broken. "The wedding, he never let me leave the mirror." That was when Amma knew. This wasn't just another mystery. This was a rescue. The legend of the missing bride. 3 years ago in Ulwari, a wedding had shocked the town. It was the biggest wedding anyone had seen in years. The groom, Chuka, was a well-known importer, very handsome and very rich. The bride, Ngozi, was a beauty queen, fair, gentle, and loved by all. Everything had been perfect. Until the ceremony started. Right there, on the church altar, with hundreds of people watching, Ngozi smiled, turned to walk toward her husband, and never made it. She vanished. Poof. Right into thin air. Some say she was kidnapped. Others say she ran. But one detail always confused the town. Her reflection stayed behind. In every wedding picture, Ngozi was there, inside the mirror. Even though she was never in the frame when the camera snapped. The family that pretended. Amma began her investigation from the house of Ngozi's parents. They had since closed their gate to strangers. The father, a quiet lecturer, now walked with a limp. The mother had started selling bottled water on the side of the road, her eyes always bloodshot. They told everyone they had moved on. But Amma knew better. Because secrets always left stains. She arrived at their compound at 2:47 p.m., just before the sun tilted. She wore her usual red dress, this time longer, and held her red book under her arm. When the mother, Mama Ngozi, opened the gate, she froze. You look like someone from that day," she whispered. "I was never there," Amma replied calmly. "But I know where your daughter is." The woman began to tremble. "Is she alive?" she asked. Amma didn't speak. She simply turned her red book around and showed her a page that had written itself. "The bride is still in the house. You never looked hard enough." The mirror in the room. The parents had never entered Ngozi's old bedroom since the wedding. They kept it locked, claiming it was too painful. But Amma insisted. When they opened the door, the room was dusty but untouched. Wedding shoes still near the bed. Veil folded on the chair. Perfume bottles half full. And on the far end, a full-length antique mirror. It stood tall, regal, almost glowing. But what made Amma's skin crawl was the reflection. In the mirror stood a girl in a wedding gown, smiling. Not moving. Not blinking. Just smiling. "Ngozi," Amma whispered. The mirror flickered. The girl inside blinked. And a tear rolled down her cheek. The husband who lied. Amma had seen enough. She next visited Chuka, the groom. He now ran a flashy nightclub called the Vow Lounge, known for its chandelier made from real wedding rings. When Amma arrived, the bouncers let her in without a question. Everyone always did. Inside, the music was loud, but Chuka recognized her immediately. His grin was fake, like old leather. "You must be the woman people whisper about," he said. "And you must be the men who trapped his bride," Amma replied without blinking. His smile vanished. "What do you know?" "Enough," she said. "I know you didn't marry her out of love. I know you used an ancestral binding charm on her reflection to make sure she never left you. And I know the girl inside that mirror is starting to remember." Chuka rose. "If you break the mirror, she dies." Amma's eyes narrowed. "If you don't release her, you die." The battle at midnight. Amma returned to the room that night, just before midnight. She drew a circle of salt around the mirror. Lit 5 black candles. Burned strands of Ngozi's old veil. The mirror pulsed with light. Ngozi's reflection pressed her hands against the glass. "He took my soul and trapped it here," she said. "He said if I tried to leave, no one would remember me." "But I do," Amma said softly. "And that's enough." She opened her red book. The page read, "To free the soul from glass, name her full name aloud with truth and intention. Speak it as if you never forgot her. Because once you forget, she's gone forever." Amma placed a hand on the glass and whispered, "Ngozi Adaora Obianuju Ease. You are not forgotten. You are not his. You are free." Suddenly, the mirror shattered. Ngozi fell out, real, breathing, weeping. And behind her, in the shards of glass, Chuka's reflection stared back. Then his mouth stretched unnaturally wide. "She's not the only one I trapped." Just as Amma helped Ngozi up, the floor beneath them cracked. From every mirror in the house, hands began reaching out. Old souls. Forgotten souls. Trapped brides. Bound lovers. Broken promises. All trying to escape. All screaming, "We remember." But in the corner of the room, one small mirror remained unbroken. It showed Amma. But not as she was now. It showed her as a child. Standing alone in a dark room. Her eyes, glowing red. And behind her, written on the wall, "You know their secrets. But who knows yours?" Amma stared at it. Trembling. For the first time, unsure. The morning after the shattered mirror incident, Olwari woke up to a new rumor. Ngozi is back from the dead. And they say it was that red-dressed girl who brought her out of a mirror. That whisper spread faster than light. But Amma wasn't out to explain herself. She was already walking through the inner district of Agala Quarter, a forgotten part of the city where the streets twisted like broken memories and even shadows were afraid to stay. She needed answers. Because that last mirror, the one that showed her as a little girl, glowing red eyes, in a dark room, wasn't just some vision. It was real. And someone else had seen her before. The old herbalist with the burnt tongue. Every city has that one healer people only go to when they're truly desperate. In Olwari, that person was Baba Tolu, a half-blind herbalist who lived in a crumbling bungalow between two rubbish dumps. People said his tongue was burnt during a spiritual fight, and since then, he could only speak in riddles. But Amma knew he wouldn't lie. She arrived just before sunset. His door was already open, as if he'd been expecting her. "Child of no memory," he croaked. "You've come." Amma stepped in cautiously. The room smelled of herbs, incense, and something older, like forgotten time. "Do you know me?" she asked. "I knew you," Baba Tolu rasped, "before you became her." Her. He turned toward a dusty calabash by the window, opened it, and brought out a black feather soaked in palm oil. He drew a circle on the floor, placed the feather in the center, and chanted. "Omo I, Omo Emi, Enit Oruko Ryo Kuro Laruko. Child of the earth, child of the spirit, the one whose name left her name." Amma froze. Because deep in her chest, something shifted. A memory. A red door. A woman screaming. Fire. Then, silence. The name erased. Baba Tolu's hands trembled as he held a piece of broken pottery, shaped like a mirror fragment. "You were not always Amma," he said. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. He pointed to the fragment. "Your real name is locked. Not just from the world. But from you. Someone took it. Hid it. Used it to build the red book." Amma stared at the red book tucked under her arm. It began to feel heavy. Too heavy. She opened it. The pages were blank. Every name. Every secret. Gone. Only one line remained. "Before you find others, find yourself." Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Ngozi stood there. Breathless. Crying. "He's coming. Chuka. He's not human anymore." The man in the red suit. While Amma had been digging into her forgotten past, Chuka had changed. Something inside him had broken during the mirror shattering. The pieces of other souls had rushed into him, creating something else. He now walked Olwari in a red three-piece suit, barefoot, humming wedding songs backward. His eyes were black. His fingernails had grown into claws. And everyone who looked into his face saw someone they had betrayed. He was no longer just a man. He was a collector of forgotten souls. And Amma. She was next. The woman in the mirror knows. Back in Baba Tolu's shrine, Amma sat cross-legged as the herbalist placed a hot stone on her forehead. "You will dream," he whispered. "But what you dream, you must survive." The moment the stone touched her skin, Amma's eyes rolled back. And she saw a mirror. Inside it, a young girl. Herself. But younger. Eyes wide with fear. A woman behind her, face hidden under a red veil, whispering in a language lost to time. "If you remember your name, they will come for you." "Who?" little Amma asked. "Your mother. Your enemies. Your blood." "What's my name?" The woman leaned close. "Your name is..." Crash. Amma woke up screaming. The mirror had shattered in the real world. And the red book was burning. But just before the flames ate it completely, one word appeared on the last page. Ayanewura. She had no idea what it meant. But Baba Tolu did. He gasped and dropped his staff. Amma. Ayanewura was the name of the last spirit walker, a child born to collect the secrets of the world, erase memories, and balance the spirit realm. She was said to have died decades ago. But she didn't die, Amma said, trembling. She just forgot. Suddenly, they heard it. From outside. Drums. Footsteps. And laughter. Chuka was outside the shrine. And he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a line of brides, all pale, all broken, all whispering the same thing. Ayanewura. Ayanewura, come play with us. Baba Tolu stepped back. You must leave. This is not a battle of the body. This is of the spirit. But I'm not ready, Amma said, panicked. You have no choice. Your name has returned. Your enemies have too. Outside, the ground cracked. And from the red sky above Olwari, a shadow fell across the city. The balance had been broken. And only Amma, Ayanawura, could fix it. The air around the shrine thickened like soup on a hot harmattan day. Even the crickets stopped singing. Amma, Ayanawura now, stood frozen, her back against the carved wooden door of Baba Tolu's shrine. Outside, they waited. 12 brides. Each wore a blood-stained wedding gown, skin pale like soaked yam, eyes black as forgotten wishes. Their lips were smeared with crimson, not lipstick, but something older, thicker. And they chanted her name, again and again. Ayanawura. Ayanawura, come play with us. Baba Tolu was already lighting dried herbs, burning ancient roots, and drawing signs with chalk and ash on the floor. They are not human anymore, he said grimly. These are the cursed wives of the Mirror King. Chuka has taken that throne now. Amma's chest rose and fell fast. But who cursed them? What do they want from me? Baba Tolu didn't answer at first. He poured a black powder into her palm instead. They want your name. Because with your true name, comes the key. Key to what? The gate between memory and reality. The gate you locked when you were just a child. The pounding on the shrine door began slowly, one knock. Then two. Then a dozen fists hammering like war drums. The red book, now half-burnt, trembled in her hands. A page flipped open on its own. A new name had appeared. Nina Ease, age, 22. Killed on her wedding night. Found with her heart missing. And under that. Bride of the Mirror King. Memory imprisoned in the lace. The lace of memories. Amma looked up. One of the brides, the one leading the chant, was smiling at her through the tiny crack in the shrine's window. She had no tongue. But her dress was stitched from pieces of old photographs and lace soaked in perfume and blood. And then Amma understood. Each bride was sewn from the memory of someone's pain. Someone who trusted love. Someone who was betrayed. And now they were trapped. Chuka had collected them. Each time a woman lost her mind in Olwari, after heartbreak, abuse, or death, he harvested their sorrow and married their ghost. That's why the city never slept peacefully. That's why the city kept forgetting. The secrets Amma carried were not just secrets. They were wounds. A doorway of fire. We can't face them here, Baba Tolu said, grabbing his staff. They are bound to the city. But in the dream realm, inside memory, we may stand a chance. He reached under his mat and pulled out a small, rusted mirror frame with no glass in it. This belonged to the first Ayanawura. Use it. Amma took the frame. It felt warm, then hot, then it glowed red. Suddenly, the wall of the shrine cracked like thunder. A red spiral opened behind her. It wasn't a door. It was a memory. Her own. Go in, Baba Tolu commanded. Will I survive it? She asked. Only if your soul is clean, he said. But no soul stays clean forever. Amma stepped into the spiral. As she vanished, the bride screamed. Inside the memory. The world inside was upside down. Buildings floated. Streets were mirrors. People had no faces. Everything was quiet, except for one sound. A child crying. She followed it. She passed a giant tree dripping blood. A playground filled with broken dolls. And finally, a room. Inside it, a child version of herself knelt, drawing symbols on the floor. Behind her stood a tall figure in a blood-red wedding dress. You returned, the figure said. But you're too late. Chuka has the veil now. Who are you? Amma whispered. I am you. The part you buried. The girl child stood, eyes glowing red. Let me show you what you forgot. And suddenly, images rushed into Amma's mind. A woman being stoned in the market. A secret marriage in the forest. A baby crying in a clay pot. A man whispering spells into a mirror. Then, Amma screaming, her name being erased by fire. She fell backward, gasping. Why did I forget all this? Because memory is pain, the ghost Amma said. And you ran away from it. Can I get it back? You already did. But now, the Mirror King knows. Back in reality. In the shrine, the spiral closed. The brides had broken in. But the moment Amma disappeared, they froze, screaming as if burned. Then Chuka walked in. His red suit glowed. In his hands, he held a veil woven from hair and ash. Let her come back, he whispered. So I can marry her again. Back inside the memory world, Amma turned to face the ghost version of herself. I'm ready now, she said. The ghost girl smiled, touched her forehead, and whispered the final truth. And as Amma opened her eyes in the real world, she whispered a new name. Chuka, your real name is not yours either. Chuka stopped smiling. Because he had just remembered who stole his soul. And the real war was about to begin. There was a thick silence in Olwari that evening. One that settled over the entire city like a wool blanket soaked in blood and honey. From the meat sellers at Oak Street to the woman boiling akamu at Tiwalade Junction, everyone paused, though they didn't know why. Somewhere, something ancient had been unlocked. A memory long buried in the mud of time was clawing its way back to the surface. And in the middle of it all was Amma. But now, she remembered everything. The ghost name. When Amma had whispered those words, Chuka, your real name is not yours either, the entire room had changed. The air twisted. Baba Tolu's walls cracked. Candles screamed out with blue flame. Even the brides, who moments ago had hissed and growled like demons, froze. Because the name Chuka was not born in Olwari. It was taken. And the one it was taken from was not just a man. He was the only human to ever trap the Mirror King. His name? Obiajalu. The hunter of names. It happened many years ago, long before the Red Book, long before Amma. Obiajalu was a palm wine tapper turned herbalist who had lost everything, wife, children, even his sight. They said he went mad after his second son drowned in a well. But what no one knew was that the well was a mirror, and the drowning wasn't by accident. Obiajalu saw the Mirror King then, not through his eyes, but through grief. He learned something no one else ever did. If you know a spirit's name, you own it. If you name it wrongly, it owns you. So he made it his life's mission. He hunted names. He stole names from spirits and bound them in snail shells, buried under anthills across Olwari. That's how he found the Mirror King's real name. He didn't write it. He sang it. Every night, for 7 years, under the mango tree where his family once sat, he sang a lullaby in a lost dialect of the river tribes. Okukporo akporo. Nayakporo ya uju. Ma uju a boogie ahaya. Translation, a fire was called by a name. His father called him Uju. But Uju is not his name. No one listened. But the Mirror King did. Chuka's truth unveiled. Back in the shrine, Chuka flinched. His red suit dimmed like a dying ember. The brides around him shrieked. Their bodies began to flicker in and out like fading signals. Obiajalu is dead. Chuka hissed. Yes, Amma replied. But his songs are not. She raised the red book, and this time it wasn't filled with names. It was filled with verses. Verses from forgotten songs. Binding spells. Hidden memories. You didn't steal your name. It was given to you by the men who caged you. Lies. Chuka shouted. That madman trapped himself in that forest. Amma shook her head slowly. You wore the name Chuka so you could escape. You walked into Olwari like a stranger with a new face, using pain to fuel your power. But names don't forget. And tonight, yours has come back. The forest that sings. Baba Tolu, now weak and sitting on the floor, lifted his staff. The only place Obiajalu's song can still be heard, is in the forest that sings. But no one enters it and comes out. Then that's where I must go, Amma replied. You won't make it alone, Baba Tolu coughed. You need a guide. Who? Amma asked. The old man smiled faintly, his breath shallow. The only person who loved the Mirror King and lived. Amma blinked. Then realized. Mama Kichi. Mama Kichi's revelation. Mama Kichi's compound was silent when Amma arrived. The old woman was seated in her bamboo chair, plaiting her gray hair into long, twisted ropes that hung down her back. So you finally remembered, Ayanawura, she said without turning. Amma stepped closer, cautious. Why didn't you ever tell me that you were his first wife? Mama Kichi turned. Her eyes, gray with age, were sharp like broken bottles. Because I knew the day you returned to Owari, you would bring the song back. What song? The one that can end it all, or start it again. Mama Kichi stood up slowly, walked to her old cupboard, and removed a small jar. Inside it, a single snail shell covered in ancient writing. This was the last name Obiagala stole. Is it his? No, she said, handing it over. It's yours. As Amma held the shell, it began to glow red and hot in her palm. Suddenly, she was no longer in Mama Kichi's hut. She was in the forest. Alone. And someone was singing. Okukporo Akporo. Nayakporo ya uju. Then, a voice whispered. Welcome home, Ayanawura. You've come for your name. But first, you must forget everything again. Darkness rushed forward. And Amma screamed. The air was heavy, thick like hot steam from freshly cooked yam. Amma blinked once, then twice. Gone were the familiar clay houses and the smell of pepper soup and fried akara from Mama Kichi's compound. In their place stood tall black trees with twisted branches that reached out like hands begging for help. The forest of forgotten songs wasn't a normal forest. The leaves didn't rustle. The soil wasn't wet. Instead, it crackled like dry bones and whispered names with every step Amma took. And the voices were getting louder. Ayanawura. Obiagala's bride. The girl with no past. She clutched the red book under her arm tightly, her eyes scanning everything. But the path ahead didn't stay straight, it moved, like the forest was alive and playing tricks with her mind. That was when she saw him. A small boy. No older than 7. Standing alone. Crying. His tears were black. The child who remembered too much. Hello. Amma called, walking carefully toward him. What's your name? The boy didn't answer. He pointed at her red book instead. You have their names, he said. But do you have yours? Amma froze. The boy stepped closer, his body flickering like a weak TV signal. They gave you away, he whispered. When you were just a baby. They made a deal, and gave your name as the price. Who? Amma asked, heart pounding. The Mirror King, he replied. He wanted to be forgotten. You wanted to remember. So he took your memory, and gave you everyone else's. Suddenly, the boy fell to the ground and began to scream. His mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. Only a song. A sorrowful, ancient lullaby. It pierced the air like a knife and made Amma's knees go weak. Okukporo Akporo. Nayakporo ya uju. The test of the 13. The forest shifted. Amma blinked, and the boy was gone. In his place stood 13 shadows, tall, faceless beings in tattered white cloth. They surrounded her in a circle, chanting in low tones, their mouths sealed shut with thread. In their hands, each held a different object, a spoon, a mirror, a red feather, a broken clock, a cracked egg, a bead, a rusty knife, a white stone, a shoe, a torn page, a lock, a bottle of tears, and finally, a name written on a leaf. One of the shadows stepped forward and spoke in a voice that echoed like thunder trapped in a drum. To pass, you must choose the object that belongs to your true past. Amma's heart raced. She didn't know her past. That was the problem. If you choose wrong, the voice said, you'll forget again, and this time, forever. She closed her eyes. She could feel the red book pulsing under her arm. Her hand hovered over the cracked egg. No. That wasn't it. She reached for the red feather. Still no. Then her hand touched the bottle of tears. It felt warm. It felt familiar. She picked it up. The forest stopped moving. The shadows bowed. She had passed. The memory flood. As soon as she touched the bottle of tears, it burst open, and a flood of memory surged through her mind. She saw herself as a baby, cradled in Mama Kichi's arms. She saw Obiagelu kneeling before the Mirror King, begging him to take anything, just to save Ama's life. The king smiled and said, "Then I take her name. I take her story. And I give her the burden of knowing everyone's secrets, except her own." Ama gasped. That's why the Red Book came to her. That's why strangers trusted her. That's why she knew things no one else did. Because her life had become the storage box for other people's truths. But now, for the first time, she had one of her own. The Mirror King returns. As the forest began to glow, a soft rumble echoed across the trees. The ground trembled. The trees bowed. And from the shadows emerged a tall figure with glowing eyes and a body made of mirrors. The Mirror King. But something had changed. He no longer looked powerful. He looked afraid. "You weren't supposed to remember," he hissed. "I gave you the power to watch, not to fight." Ama stepped forward, calm but fierce. "You gave me your power, your names, your lies. Now I want what's mine, my name. It is cursed," he warned. "You'll carry more than truth. You'll carry pain. Everyone you love will forget you." Ama's eyes narrowed. "Then I will remind them." The Mirror King opened his hands, and a mirror formed between them. Inside it was Ama. But not the Ama everyone saw now. The real one. She had long silver hair. Skin glowing like the moon. And her name, written in light across her chest, pulsed with a sound. The final verse of Obiagelu's song. "Okuk poro. Nayak poro ya uju. Maahaya biyu. Ayanawura." The forest roared. The trees caught fire. The sky split in two. And Ama began to sing. The moment her name was spoken, Ayanawura, the ground beneath Ama cracked open with a deep groan, and light poured out like liquid fire. Her eyes glowed, her breath slowed, and time itself bent around her. She was no longer just Ama, the girl with the red book. She was Ayanawura, the one who carried 1,000 secrets, yes, but also 1,000 lives. Lives of kings and queens, beggars and prophets. Lives she never lived, but somehow remembered. As the forest of forgotten songs vanished behind her like smoke, she found herself standing back in Olwari town. But nothing was the same. The sun stood still in the sky. People walked backward. Conversations echoed before they were spoken. Something was broken. The curse of memory. Every step Ama took, she remembered another life. In one, she was a warrior princess who died at sea. In another, a healer burned at the stake for knowing too much. In another, she was a thief, blinded as punishment for seeing too deeply into the truth of others. And then she remembered something that shook her to her bones. She had lived in Olwari before. Not just in this life, but many. Always watching. Always knowing. Always forgotten. The townspeople didn't know it, but every generation, she returned. Sometimes as a maid. Sometimes as a child. Once even as an old woman. But no matter her form, one thing remained, she always came with the red book. The return to Mama Kichi's compound. Ama walked slowly down the dusty street that led to Mama Kichi's food stall. The familiar smells of hot stew and roasted plantain filled the air, but no one looked at her the same way anymore. Their eyes slid off her, like oil on water. They couldn't see her now. She had entered the in-between, a place between memory and reality. Only those with deep pain or deep guilt could still see her. As she approached Mama Kichi's compound, the old woman was sitting quietly, grinding pepper with one hand and wiping her eyes with the other. "Ama." Mama Kichi whispered, without looking up. Ama knelt beside her. "I found my name." The old woman's hand froze. Slowly, she looked up, and for the first time in days, tears rolled freely down her wrinkled cheeks. "Then, it's time," Mama Kichi said. "Time to wake them all up." The book that chose her. Ama placed the red book on the floor between them. It opened by itself. Pages flipped with a loud fluttering sound, each one glowing gold as it passed. Amma began to read, not just aloud, but into the air, into the wind, into the soul of the city. Zainab, who hides her bruises with foundation. Uncle Ojo, who killed a boy in 1985 and buried him under the mango tree near the well. The pastor's daughter, who cries herself to sleep every night, waiting for her mother to return. The streets trembled. Windows shattered. People began collapsing, not in pain, but in revelation. Their secrets were being pulled from their bodies like poison thorns. Amma didn't stop. She read faster. The book grew heavier. It was filled with names, dates, lies, betrayals, lost babies, stolen land, secret lovers, and unspoken truths. But with every page she read, Amma lost something too. Her warmth. Her smell. Her body. She was becoming memory itself. The ones who remembered. Not everyone reacted the same way. Some ran. Some screamed. But a few, just a few, looked up at her with recognition. One was Obiagelu. He stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ayanewura, he whispered. You were the girl with the red scarf in 1972, the woman in the yellow geli in 1994, the one I loved but could never remember. Amma's voice trembled. And yet, you made the deal that cursed me. You begged the Mirror King to save my life, even if it meant taking away my past. Obiagelu stepped closer. And I would do it again. 1,000 times. Amma's face broke into a sad smile. Then remember me this one time. So I can stay. He reached for her hand. Their fingers touched. Light exploded. The very next morning, the people of Olwari awoke to silence. The sun had risen, but no birds sang. No horns honked. The streets were still. The air was strange. Mama Kichi looked around. Where is the girl? She asked no one in particular. The one with the red book. But no one knew who she meant. There was no girl. There was no book. Even Obiagelu looked around, confused. His eyes searched, but they were blank. He had forgotten. Everyone had forgotten, again. Except one. A small child sat quietly by the roadside, holding a red feather in her hand. She smiled knowingly. She'll be back, the child whispered. She always comes back. She sat alone at the junction where the red sand met the tarred road, hugging her knees and humming a strange lullaby. Nobody noticed her. Not the schoolchildren walking past with heavy bags and sleepy eyes. Not the bike men revving impatiently at the junction. Not even the gossiping mamas at Mama Kichi's roadside stall. They didn't see her. But she saw them all. And more importantly, she remembered. In her tiny hand, she held a single red feather. It pulsed like a heartbeat, faintly glowing every few seconds. With every pulse, the child blinked, as if visions were dancing in her eyes. They've forgotten again, she whispered. Her name was Imade. Just 7 years old. Skin like polished mahogany. A curious gaze. And a secret only she and the feather knew. She had inherited Amma's memory. A voice in the wind. That morning, as she sat under the almond tree beside the junction, a soft breeze blew past. But it wasn't just any wind. It carried whispers. Old whispers. Imade, the book must not close forever, the red one, the voices are trapped. She turned her head slightly. No one else reacted. Only she could hear it. That was the thing about knowing Amma's secrets, you could no longer live like a normal child. You heard too much. You saw what others pretended not to see. And you remembered things you had no business remembering. Like the night Baba Aleo buried something in the cemetery that wasn't a coffin. Or how Teacher Grace's wedding ring was stolen from her sister's corpse. Or how her own mother, F, once tried to throw her into a well when she was just a baby, but Amma appeared out of nowhere and stopped her. Imade had never spoken of these memories. She couldn't. Because no one would believe her. But worse still. Somebody wanted to silence her. The men with two shadows. Around noon, as the sun blazed hot and lazy over Olwari, a man appeared. He wore a dark green suit, despite the heat. Black shoes that never gathered dust. And a face too smooth for his age. But that wasn't what made Imade watch him closely. It was the two shadows he carried, one moved with him, the other moved before him. As he passed through the town, dogs barked. Babies cried. Street lights flickered. People turned their faces from him without knowing why. He stopped in front of Imade. Kneeled slowly. Smiled. "That's a very special feather you're holding," he said. Imade gripped it tighter. The feather glowed red-hot for a second, then cooled. "It belonged to my sister," she replied firmly. The men raised a brow. "Amma." She nodded. "Ah, yes. Amma." She was difficult to erase. But not impossible. "You, on the other hand." He reached for her. And the moment his finger came close, a giant red book slammed open in midair between them. Pages fluttered violently. And the wind howled like an angry spirit. The men staggered back. The second shadow behind him screamed like a wounded animal and vanished. Imade stood up slowly. "You can't touch me," she said. "She left something behind in me." "What?" the men asked, trembling. Imade smiled. Her voice. Back at Mama Kichi's stall, a distant rumbling shook the pots. The people looked around, confused. "Is it thunder?" someone asked. "But the sky is clear," said another. Mama Kichi's eyes widened. She remembered this sound. She didn't know why or how, but her bones remembered. She dropped the spoon in her pot and whispered under her breath, "She's coming back." And all across the town of Olwari, strange things began to happen. Baba Lawani's fruit stall turned upside down on its own. A blind woman started to scream in languages no one understood. A baby began chanting names of dead people. The red book was open again. And the secrets were leaking. Imade took the book and began to walk down the same road Amma once did. Except this time, people saw her. They stared. She was no longer invisible. But none of them knew why they feared her. Or why they suddenly remembered old wrongs they thought were buried. Or why they dreamed of a red-dressed woman with a soft glowing face calling their names at night. Imade didn't speak. She didn't need to. Because Amma had already said everything that needed to be said. Now, it was time for Olwari to listen. Truly listen. Before the final secret is revealed. And the city faces the one truth no one wants to remember. The mayor's mansion stood like a forgotten god at the far end of Olwari town, tall, proud, and silent. Its walls, once painted white, now were the color of dry ash. No one ever walked too close. Not even the street boys who chased footballs into compound gutters. But tonight, there was a light in the upper room. A flickering reddish light. And the mayor's son, Oba, stood in front of a large mirror, whispering names. Not just any names. Names that Amma had whispered in his dreams for 7 nights straight. Auntie Roli. Baba Simi. Chief Dudu. Mama Adesawa. His breath grew heavy as he called each one. The room felt colder with every name. His eyes, wide, unblinking, were fixed on the mirror as if it were a person. Then, with trembling hands, he opened a red envelope. It had no name on it, only a strange wax seal, a snake curled around a feather. Inside was a photo, faded and scratched, but clear enough to send cold fear into his chest. It was a picture of his father, the mayor of Olwari, standing with a girl. A girl in a red dress. Amma. And worse. The mayor's hand was on her shoulder, while she held a newborn baby. The date on the photo read, October 12, 2005. Oba's hand shook as the truth began to push its way into his mind. "That baby can't be me," he whispered. "No. No." But the eyes in the photo, his eyes, said otherwise. Flashback, a debt that couldn't be paid. It was 2005, and the elections in Olwari were fast approaching. Chief Remy, Oba's father, was desperate to win. Power was everything. People said he made a deal. Some said it was with a secret cult from the capital. Others whispered it was with a woman in red, a stranger who arrived with a book that predicted the future. She promised him victory. But only if he gave up something in return. That something was his child. But when the baby came and the power tasted sweet on his tongue, he refused to let her take the child away. So, Amma left, but not before writing the child's name in her red book. And when a name is written in that book, it cannot be erased. Present day, a son who was never supposed to live. Oba staggered back from the mirror. His head throbbed. His ears rang. Everything he thought he knew about himself, his birth, his mother, his life, was now a lie. He was a debt. A stolen future. And Amma had come back to collect. Suddenly, the flickering red light in the room dimmed. Shadows gathered at the corners of the walls like oil spreading on water. Then came the sound. A slow, soft knock at the door. Oba couldn't move. The knock came again. Not loud. Not rushed. Just steady. Patient. Like someone who already knew the door would open. He walked to it slowly. Heart pounding. Hand shaking. He opened the door. And standing there was a maid. 7 years old. Holding the red book. Eyes glowing gently. She didn't say a word. She just walked in, opened the book, and placed it on the floor. You need to see what's written under your name, she whispered. The pages turned on their own, as if blown by an invisible wind. They stopped at a single page. Obataru Remy Jr. Underneath, in deep red ink, were the words. The debt must be paid in blood or truth. Oba fell to his knees. But I don't want to die. A maid looked at him gently. Then speak. Tell the town. Tell the truth. It's the only way. Back at the palace gates, whispers rise. Outside the mansion, the people of Olwari gathered in clusters. They didn't know why they came. They just felt it. A pull. A stirring. From school teachers to drivers, to the old mama with one leg who sold roasted yam by the roadside, they all stood silently, waiting. Waiting for something they didn't understand. Then the palace gates creaked open. And Oba stepped out. Still in his pajamas. Still shaking. Holding the red book. And behind him, a maid. She nodded once. He took a deep breath. My name is Obataru Remy Jr. You all know me as the mayor's son. But what you don't know is, I'm not supposed to be alive. Gasps. My father stole my life. Amma gave him power. And now, she has come to collect what is hers. But I choose to pay with the only thing I have. He raised the book. The truth. One by one, memories began to return. Faces twisted. Eyes watered. Mama Kichi fell to the ground, shouting, I remember. I remember what I did to her. Baba Aleo started shaking uncontrollably. The mayor, from inside the mansion, screamed like a wild beast. And above them all, the wind carried a woman's laugh. Soft. Sweet. Deadly. Amma's laugh. And still, no one knew where she was. Because even though she was seen, she was never truly known.